Hello everyone! Today we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Felix Cheng's first YouTube channel. On May 26, 2006, Felix Cheng joined YouTube for the first time. This guy had inspired me to become a YouTube user and has made some outstanding Thomas the Tank Engine content. There were quite a lot of people who looked up to this guy, and even today, his work has inspired generation after generation of Thomas fans to make videos that are very similar to his. His original account was around on YouTube up until sometime in October of 2007, when that account had been shut down for circumstances I will not be mentioning in this video. He made a new account called Alex Cohe Fan on October 24th, 2007, with that account running until it was shut down in December of 2009. Now, he has an account that was originally titled Thomas and DBZ 2010. Although he would re-upload the first few episodes of Kuno the Tank Engine into private, the new Engine Slideshow series didn't return, and he has gone on to other things. The spirit of his videos live on, however. Many people would make their own New Engine Slideshow videos, as well as their own series of YouTube users as Thomas characters, inspired by his series, Kuno the Tank Engine. Over time, the 29 episodes of his New Engine Slideshow series would resurface and be re-uploaded by users such as Raging Thomas and MikeFan21. As of this video's recording, many episodes of the series are still missing, but I suppose we can hope that the missing episodes will resurface someday. Since we've gotten a general idea of the lost content of the New Engine Slideshow series, I decided to create this lore series where I tell you as much as I can about a select number of characters who appeared in Felix Cheng's New Engine Slideshow series. Keep in mind that because some episodes and images are currently lost, there will be some information I will leave out, as I simply do not have access to this information or remember things enough to bring it up. For the most part, I don't think I can mention the engine basis of most of the characters, but there will be some characters in the official TV show that would be of similar bases, or even the exact same basis, as those who appeared in this series. I'll bring up any similarities to official characters if I think it is significant enough, but bear in mind that a lot of the new engine videos were uploaded before the show went to CGI. At the time the original New Engine video was uploaded in 2006, the most recent season of the show to come out was Season 10. So things like Emily getting her number 12, Barry being confirmed to be number 13, or even the existence of Charlie, number 14, had not happened yet. Also, there are a lot of repeated names in the New Engine Slideshow series, both those coming from existing characters and characters that had not been introduced yet at the time. There have been countless times in the past in which I would get comments such as, "There's already a character named Charlie," or "There's already a character named George," or anything like that. I'd like to point out that characters with shared names have actually been done in the show itself. We got 2 Berts, 2 Olivers, 2 Jacks, and even 4 Thomases. So any comments saying something like, "There can't be 2 Olivers," are not allowed because, as Oliver and Oliver once said,
"Yes, there can."
Within this series, I'll discuss as many of the characters as I can, but there will be some characters I will be skipping over, as I simply do not have enough information about them. If there is anything you think I should have mentioned, feel free to let me know, and I'll see if I can bring it up in a future entry. We will begin by talking about the 2 most iconic characters in the New Engine Slideshow series, Joy and Naz, the Japanese twins. Joy is engine number 15, while Naz is engine number 16. Now, at the time the show came out, the engines on the Northwestern Railway only had the numbers go up to 11. This was in 2006, mind you, but you might be thinking, if Emily didn't have her number 12 yet, and we didn't know about Barry's number 13, and Charlie didn't exist at the time, then why are we starting the New Engine Slideshow episode with an engine that has the number 15 and not an engine with the number 12? Well, it is because Felix Cheng headcanoned that Lady the Magical Engine was number 12, Bill was number 13, and Ben was number 14. Also, I wrote Bill as Billy in the script, but I fixed it. If you've watched the 2014 remaster of Kuno the Tank Engine Generation 1 Part 4, or saw the original version of that video when Felix Cheng uploaded it back in 2007, you will notice that Mr. Sea Monkey X, who is Bill, has the number 13, while Fireblade RX-7, who is Ben, has the number 14. King Spam 78, who appeared as Lady, was never depicted with the number 12, likely due to Felix Cheng dropping this headcanon by the time Kuno the Tank Engine 7 came out. Now I know you guys will say something like, but Lady isn't part of the Northwestern Railway, she works on the Magic Railroad, separate place, or Lady isn't even real, she is only a figment of Thomas's dream in calling all engines, and Thomas and the Magic Railroad isn't even canon. With all due respect, it is likely Felix Cheng didn't take any of those things into account at the time he made the headcanon. And as far as I know, nobody even cared whether or not Lady was canonically real or if Magic Railroad was canon. And as for Bill and Ben, they joined the railway before Oliver did, at least in the TV series. So some people may say that having them as numbers 13 and 14 doesn't make much sense either. Now, I personally ignored this headcanon since it wasn't canon to the official show, nor did it ever become canon since, as you guys recall, Emily eventually got the number 12 and not Lady. When I joined YouTube after episode 14 of the new Engine Slideshow series was released, I suggested different characters to take the numbers 12, 13, and 14 since Lady, Bill, and Ben having these numbers was non-canon. Felix Cheng agreed to this and brought in Jace, Zach, and Zicky in episode 15 of the series. Since we're talking about episode 1 for this entry, I'm going to hold off on talking about Jace, Zach, and Zicky for the time being. We'll talk about them someday, just not in this video. Regarding Joy and Naz, they are essentially like Donald and Douglas if they were from Japan. In fact, they starred in their own homemade episode called Joy and Naz. I talked about this in the first episode of my YouTube Nostalgic Look Back series, so I suggest you check that video out to get more details about that homemade episode if you haven't watched that video already. Since Felix Cheng's video isn't on YouTube anymore, I'm showing you footage from my remake of that episode. When Felix Cheng did the episode, he used Tomy C62 engines to portray Joy and Naz, and they had custom faces added to them. As for my own models, I've made custom models from a couple of Thomas Wood heroes, since Joy and Naz are very similar to Hero. Tamidate 2009 would do the same thing. Now, Joy and Naz predate Hero by about 3 years, since at this time the show was still using physical models, and the idea of switching to CGI had not been thought up yet, or at least this idea hadn't been made known to the public. This is one reason I was so interested in Hero, due to their similarities. It is a shame that Felix Cheng never did his own picture of Hero, but if you watched my custom Kuno the Tank Engine 18, you'll get some idea of how such a picture would have looked. Now, because Felix Cheng's Joy and Naz models were Tomy, and most of the rest of his train collection was Wooden Railway, he had to use his hands to hold the cars together to the trains, since there was no way to couple them up properly. As for my Joy and Naz, they use actual Wooden Railway / wood models, so coupling up to the cars is no problem. I guess Felix Cheng hadn't thought to do this since the adult Thomas fandom was mostly the teenage Thomas fandom at the time, and a lot of us didn't have the money to buy some extra models for customs. That, and probably because we didn't have the skills to make custom models as we do now. It certainly goes to show how much customization with Thomas models has gone since the classic days. When I did Joy and Naz and Thomas merchandise art, I used Murdoch as the base character, as this was in 2008, and Hero wouldn't exist for another year at this point. Felix Cheng was quite impressed with how they turned out. When Hero finally did come into existence, I actually went ahead and remade some of the merchandise of Joy and Naz, this time using Hero as the base character, and even did these pictures showing how they would look as actual characters in the show. Sure, they don't have those cylinders above their smoke boxes as Hero does, but this wasn't something I cared about when I made this. Hero looked similar enough to Joy and Naz, and I was just excited to have the closest thing to the most iconic Felix Cheng characters that we were ever going to get in the official show. Now, as for Joy and Naz's story, if you know the story about Donald and Douglas, it was basically the same for Joy and Naz. However, Felix Cheng never made an episode that concluded Joy and Naz's dilemma of both arriving on Sodor when Sir Topham had only expected one of them. After I remade the episodes Felix Cheng had made, I decided to make a new episode titled Another Deputation to conclude this story arc and explain how Sir Topham Hatt was convinced to keep both. Sure, it's again the same as Donald and Douglas, but it was still a good way to cap off their saga. Now, I'm sure you guys are wondering what gender Joy and Naz are. If you assume that they were female, you'd be wrong, as it just so happens Felix Cheng confirmed that Joy and Naz are both male characters. Now, I am aware that Joy is often a girl's name, and I'm aware that Naz from Ed, Edd and Eddy happens to be a girl, and this is the only other place where I've heard the name Naz from. I honestly think Joy and Naz could be gender-neutral names. Do you agree with me? Leo the Purple Engine. Leo is engine number 17. His story is that he came from America to work on Sodor. When he first arrived, he had problems with going up hills because of his bubbling boiler, relying on another engine to help push him up. Does that sound familiar? Of course, like Sir Handel, Leo's problem was fixed, and he was able to continue work on Sodor. Felix Cheng's model of Leo was a Bachmann model, and like Joy and Naz, it depended on Felix Cheng's hands in order to couple up to the trains, and the model didn't have any magnets. My model of Leo was made from an old Ben model with a custom smoke box and face made from Model Magic. Taminate 2009 also made a custom Leo in the Thomas Wood style. When I did Leo in merchandise art, I used Percy's body with James's face since I thought that Percy looked the closest to looking like Leo at the time. But when I got to making my physical Leo model, I looked at my old Ben model and decided that he looked closer to looking like Leo than Percy did. All I had to do was give him a new smoke box and face, and I am quite happy with the way this model turned out. Felix Cheng had planned to feature Leo in another homemade episode, which would have been called Leo and the Signal, but it was cancelled. Aww. Puddin' and Huggin'. Puddin' and Huggin' are engines numbers 18 and 19. Unlike Joy, Naz, and Leo, Puddin' and Huggin' never got to star in their own homemade Thomas episode. So how Felix Cheng would have portrayed them is unknown. Now you may notice that Puddin' and Huggin' look similar to another character who would be introduced later on. That character is Bo, the American Tender Engine, who appeared in the 2018 movie Big World, Big Adventures. Now, if the Thomas Wood Bo had not been cancelled, I could have gotten 2 of the 2018 versions and made them into custom models of Puddin' and Huggin'. But I would need to give them new faces since they don't have mustaches as Bo does. When I did them both in Thomas merchandise art, I used Donald and Douglas as the basis since they were the closest characters to looking like Puddin' and Huggin' since Bo didn't exist yet. I have never made any physical models of Puddin' and Huggin', and I don't know if Felix Cheng ever did either, or if he even planned to. And just as Bo didn't exist at the time, neither did Nia. I suppose you could come up with some headcanon to explain this. Maybe Huggin' exists, but Puddin' doesn't? Or perhaps when Nia arrived on Sodor, Puddin' and Huggin' were already there, and Nia already had her number 18 when she arrived on Sodor, and Sir Topham Hatt simply never had her change the number. It is similar to how Thomas was given the number 1 after Glyn, the original number 1, was put out of service, and that Glyn would continue to wear the number 1 on his side even after he was restored in the Christmas coffee pot. After recording that bit, I then realized that Emily hadn't been given her number 12 yet at the time that Nia and Rebecca had been introduced to Sodor. So if we can assume that any of Felix Cheng's new Engine Slideshow characters are canon, it is unlikely that Joy, Naz, Leo, Puddin, or Huggin would have been introduced to Sodor yet, since it wouldn't make that much sense for Sir Topham Hatt to give an engine the number 15 or 16 if there was no number 12. Charlie already had his number 14 when he arrived on Sodor, and I kind of view that if an engine already has their number, Sir Topham Hatt will usually just let them keep their number, such as how Philip is number 68 and he continued to wear that number after he arrived on Sodor. But there is the exception that Thomas had the number 70 when he arrived on Sodor, and yet Sir Topham Hatt switched him from number 70 to number 1. So it is a bit questionable as to where the New Engine Slideshow series characters could fit into canon, considering the way each of the engines had received their numbers and in what order. I'm not quite sure what to think at this point, but you guys can let me know what you think could be done about it. Drake. Drake is engine number 20. When I first saw this character, I referred to him as Drake the Cabless Engine due to him having no cab. But I later found out that his actual basis is called Lion. This came as a surprise to me in future entries when I had requested Felix Cheng to do some engines called Lion engines. What I was expecting was just any engine basis to be called Lion Engine, as I had no idea that there really was an engine called Lion. So it came as a surprise to me to see that Drake's basis is called Lion. I would also do Drake in Thomas merchandise art, and I used Edward as the base character. But the Bachmann model was James's model, as Edward's Bachmann model did not exist at the time. Something I wish people would understand is to check the dates on videos or recognize when a video is a re-upload. Jimmy. Jimmy is engine number 21, and is a black tender engine based on James. In fact, you could say Jimmy is supposed to be James's twin. The image that was used for Jimmy in the New Engine Slideshow series would be used many times in future entries, as well as for Luke the Red Engine, who is the Kuno the Tankerton version of James, and Law of the Sun, who is the Kuno the Tankerton version of Jimmy. Something that you could do if you have the black version of James that was released alongside the release of The Adventure Begins in 2015 is you could perhaps print a number 21 on a black background and stick it over the number 5 on the black James tender and portray that as Jimmy. I'm not sure if I will ever do that myself. I'd like to see if I can do it in a way where I can remove it and put it back on and go back and forth between them. Another idea could be that I could customize a spare engine tender, paint it black, and print a number 21 on it, and use that with the front part of the black James model. Now when I did Jimmy and Thomas merchandise art, I actually drew him as a gray engine, as I thought he looked more gray than he did black. What do you guys think? And of course, James was the base character for Jimmy in this video. A side note is that GTPS2 would also include a black tender engine named Jimmy, who was said to be James's twin, but he didn't have the number on him. I asked GTPS2 if this Jimmy was supposed to be the same character as Jimmy from Felix Cheng's series, and he said, yes, Felix Cheng did allow this, just so you all know. And I think it was an interesting idea nonetheless. It is too bad I don't have GTPS2's image of Jimmy to show you, since those videos have been lost for a long time as well. Jordan. Jordan is engine number 22. Once again, Rebecca would not exist for another 12 years at this point. Jordan is a silver painted engine, and something interesting in regards to his number, besides the fact that neither Felix Cheng nor anybody else in the Thomas community at the time knew that there would eventually be an official number 22, is that his number was on the side of his cab instead of on his tender. On his tender, the letters LMS appeared instead. I think that's pretty cool. As for when Rebecca would eventually be introduced, just like with Nia, I'm not entirely sure what to think at this point. I did actually write the script similar to what I had written for Nia beforehand, but then I gave the whole explanation in regards to Emily not having her number 12 at the time. So, what do you guys think? Jordan. Jordan is engine number 23, and that's Jordan spelled Jordon, not Jordan spelled Jordan. I don't really have anything to say about this character, so let's move on. Jupiter. Jupiter is number 24, another engine of the same basis as Puddin', Huggin', and Bo. In fact, Jupiter looks more like Bo than Puddin' and Huggin' do in terms of color. And like Jordan, with an A, Jupiter's number is on his cab, not his tender. Danny. Danny is engine number 25, who appears to be a bigger version of Thomas. They're both blue tank engines, and I think that is cool to have another blue tank engine like Thomas. Quite like this is another tank engine that works on Thomas's branch line or something. Andrew. He is engine number 26. Andrew is what is referred to as a fireless engine, and I think he is called that because he doesn't use fire to be powered up. I think that I used to call him the funnelless engine due to him not having a funnel, but he is officially called a fireless engine. That's all I have to say. Lipsy. Lipsy is engine number 28. I'm sure you guys can take a good guess where Lipsy got her name from. You have probably noticed that while I have mentioned that Andrew is number 26 and Lipsy is number 28, I haven't once mentioned who number 27 is. In Felix Cheng's New Engine Slideshow, Lipsy is the engine that appeared right after Andrew, and there was no number 27 that ever made an appearance in this first installment. Some of you guys might be wondering why that is. While a lot of other people may have already figured it out, while Nia and Rebecca didn't exist yet to claim the numbers 18 and 22, there was already an engine that claimed the number 27. That engine was Harvey. Felix Cheng chose not to make a new character with the number 27 and instead counted Harvey as the official Northwestern Railway number 27. On an old website he used, Felix Cheng listed off the engines on the Northwestern Railway, and in addition to having Lady be listed as number 12, Bill as number 13, and Ben as number 14, Harvey is listed as number 27, appearing right after Andrew and right before Lipsy. I imagine that in an alternate universe where Nia and Rebecca were introduced in Season 6, it is likely Puddin' and Jordan wouldn't have existed. Or if Harvey never existed, either at all or at some point after the first New Engine Slideshow video was made, Felix Cheng would have made his own number 27. It is certainly interesting to imagine what would happen if the official characters had existed earlier or later than they did, and how that would have affected the New Engine Slideshow series. I guess this is how things go with fan content, and what happens in the official media over time since the fan content was brought out. Don Vito. Number 29 is an engine called Don Vito, the French engine. There is something I'd like to mention about Don Vito, but it also involves another character that I'll mention later in this video, so hold that thought. Ernie. Ernie is engine number 30. Something that I remember about this character is that he appeared in a Meow Mix video where his mouth would be animated. It starts with Ernie saying in Natural Reader's voice, "I wonder if, oh yes," and then begins to sing this.
Meow, 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 meow.
You may notice the audio was cut off there. That's because this audio comes from a commercial for cat food called Meow Mix. The next part of the audio was just the announcer talking. That's why it was cut off. Eris. Eris is engine number 31. Something I recall is that just as I had done with Jace, Zach, Zicky, Joy, Naz, Leo, Puddin', and Huggin, a user called Sonic and Rotor created a merchandise video about Eris. This merchandise video used Wilbert as the basis since Eris and Wilbert do look similar. Although, given how Wilbert had little merchandise himself, it is also possible some of it had Bill or Ben as the basis. I wish I could remember for sure. Also, is Eris supposed to be blue or black? Some sources I found call her a black engine, but Sonic and Rotor's video shows her as blue. Does she only look black from the lighting? I'm not sure. I also remember seeing some comments asking about using Wilbert's model to portray Eris in a homemade episode. Someone asked if Felix had a wooden railway model of Wilbert to use as Eris. He said he did not, but he did say he had an Erdl model, with the person in question saying that would do. Makes me wonder what that episode would have been like. Mulaney. Mulaney is engine number 32. She appears to be a streamlined engine, similar to Connor and Caitlin, both of whom would be introduced to the show 7 years later. I think she is also the same basis as Speedy McAllister from Chuggington, a show that would not exist for a few more years after this new Engine Slideshow video came out. Bart. Bart is engine number 33. He is a pencil sharpener engine, or at least I think I remember him being called a pencil sharpener engine on some websites Felix Cheng used. And as you can see, the image that is used for Bart is made from a picture of a pencil sharpener in the shape of a train, similar to Puddin', Huggin', Jupiter, and Bo. Felix just painted the engine blue and added a tender. In fact, I also have one of those myself, and for the heck of it, I went ahead and also edited it to look like Bart. My idea for how he got the name, the pencil sharpener engine, could be that when he first arrived on Sodor, he got a job of taking a train of boxcars to the gift shop, and one of the things the gift shop was going to sell were pencil sharpeners in the shape of engines, and they happened to look like Bart. So Bart was given this nickname as a reference to his first job on Sodor. Man, I wish I had suggested this story idea to Felix Cheng when this video originally came out. I wonder what he would have thought. Oakley. Oakley is engine number 34. He looks a lot like Jordan, number 23. Perhaps they're twins? Who knows? Ralph. Ralph is engine number 35, and he is a brother of Spencer's. Knowing the relationship between Gordon and Spencer in the actual show, I wonder how Gordon and Ralph would have gotten along. Richard. Richard is engine number 36. He is a yellow saddle tank engine. I don't have anything to say about him. Blue Nose, the strict engine. Blue Nose is number 37, and yes, I am aware of the Tugs character of the same name. I'm not sure if this was where Felix Cheng got the name from, but I do remember seeing some comments about this back in the day. I'd also like to point out that Rosie would make her debut in the TV series a few months after this video was originally uploaded. And while Rosie was eventually given the number 37 in the TV series along with a different coat of paint from what she had originally, she would remain in her original lavender livery for the next decade after this new engine episode came out. So in this case, Rosie didn't exist at the time this video came out, and even when she was introduced, she wouldn't have the number 37 for the next 10 to 11 years after this. Engines numbers 38 and 39 are named Jill and Phil, a set of saddle tank engine twins, and a couple of Richard's siblings. Richard even uses the same image that Jill uses. I don't have anything to say about Vernon, number 40, or Rosemary, number 41. Our next character is Henry. No, not that Henry, this Henry. Number 42, more specifically, Henry II. Yes, the text shows Henry, followed by two letter I's in parentheses, showing the Roman numeral for the number 2. Now we move on to Luke. Wrong Luke! That's more like it. Luke is engine number 43. Nothing more to say. Lenny, number 44, is up next. He appears to be of a similar basis as Ryan, a character introduced 9 years later. Now we go on to another iconic character, Poppy the Pink Engine, number 45. At one point, Poppy was given her own tribute video with the song Let's Have a Race. I remember asking Felix if he would do her in Thomas merchandise art, but he said that no character resembled her. I suggested possibly using Arthur as the basis, but Felix didn't respond after that. I eventually did Poppy in merchandise myself. Gladstone. Gladstone, also known as Gladys, is engine number 46. Gladstone appears to be of a similar basis as Emily, so I think she could be either Emily's sister or cousin. It is at this point I'd like to bring up another video I remember seeing Gladstone in, along with Don Vito, who we mentioned earlier. I'm not going to say what the video was called due to some controversy, but Felix Cheng didn't actually promote the subject of the song, but I think my dad was a bit suspicious when he saw the title of the video and told me what the subject was actually about. Felix Cheng just thought the song was great, not the subject of the song. Gladys and Don Vito sounded similar to Prairie Dawn and Cookie Monster from Sesame Street, so they sounded something like this.
Do you have cookies?
Do I have any cookies?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is yes.
Oh boy, where? Oh boy.
That video also featured Jordan, who had a voice that sounded similar to Bert's, Zozo the Diesel, a character who appeared in part 2 of the new Engine Slideshow series, who we'll talk more about in a future entry, having a voice similar to Ernie's.
Where are all the fishes?
Oh, they're down there, Bert.
Yeah.
Sure.
AJ the Mallard, another part 2 character sounding similar to Big Bird, and Thomas with a voice sounding similar to Kermit's.
Kermit, it's Christmas Eve. We gotta find out.
Okay, let's be scientific about it.
If you've been on YouTube around 2006 to 2009, you may remember what that video is, but I will not be mentioning its name in this video. It goes to show that sometimes you end up learning a lot more on the internet than you expected. Our next engine is Mindy, number 47. She is an LMS 264 engine. She looks similar to Arthur in color, but she is of the same basis as another future character named Belle. It is also worth noting that Mike Solo, the Kuno the Tengagen equivalent of Arthur, would also be depicted as a 264, though this also happened before Belle existed. Next is Elliot, the Blue Tank Engine, number 48. Nothing to say about him. Then we have Sir Frederick, number 49. After him, we have Jade the Yellow Engine, number 50, JJ, number 51, and by the way, Hero does not count because he never became a permanent resident on the island of Sodor. He does have the number 51, but that is a reference to his basis. While he did stay on Sodor for quite some time during the CGI series, he never became a permanent resident on the island of Sodor, because he does end up going back to Japan around the end of the series. Quite sad, I know, but I just thought that I'd throw that out there just in case some people were going to say, well, what about Hero? Oh, and the same also goes for Samson as well. I know he has the number 15, but he doesn't count because he's a visiting engine, not a permanent resident. Moving on, we now have Jim, number 52, who is an engine that is of a similar basis as Donald and Douglas, or even the same basis. Jackie, number 53, Alan, number 54, Bob, number 55, and then we've got Tracy, number 56, who appears to be of a similar basis as Luke, who is number 43. So, are they twins? Speaking of twins, we've got another set of twins. Those twins being Andy and Mandy, the German twins, who are numbers 57 and 58. After them is Ricardo, the American engine, number 59. Next is Francis, the German engine, number 60. And then we have Audrey, the French engine, number 61. He is of the same basis as Don Vito, but is painted blue, and he has a white face in contrast to the rest of the engines in this series. I'm not sure why Felix Cheng chose to have him be depicted with a white face, but I had seen some of these images where the characters have white faces instead of gray. Perhaps Felix Cheng started with having the engines with white faces, but before the first New Engine Slideshow video came out, he switched to gray faces and adjusted all but one of the engine's faces. For this next section of the video, I'm going to be going out of order here and we'll be skipping over to the Sodor and Mainland Railway engines for this. The Sodor and Mainland Railway is the railway in which Neil works, and Felix Cheng decided to expand upon that railway with his own characters. Real quickly, I would like to address that according to the Thomas the Tank Engine wiki, despite its name, it never reached the mainland and was a financial disaster, and that it was absorbed into the Northwestern Railway in 1914. And it says that it closed in 1901. I'm not entirely sure if Felix Cheng took this into account, but for anyone who is going to point it out to me, I want to let you guys know that I did look it up on the wiki, so I at least know that in the Railway series canon, the Sodor and Mainland Railway closed. But perhaps Felix Cheng is taking a look at the TV series portrayal of the Sodor and Mainland Railway. But who knows? With that side note out of the way, let's now get on to the characters that Felix Cheng came up with for the Sodor and Mainland Railway in his headcanon. Starting with one you guys probably know pretty well. Mushi. Mushi is Sodor and Mainland Railway engine number 7. He is painted gold, and just like Joy, Naz, and Leo, Mushi also got to star in his own homemade episode, titled Mushi's New Coaches. I think the model that Felix Cheng used for Mushi was a Hobby Lobby train kit model. This model technically did have a proper connection point on the tender, but it was more of a hook than an actual coupling, according to Felix Cheng. Both Rail Pony and I would also do Mushi in Thomas merchandise art, and in both cases, we use Edward as the base character. Something I'd like to mention is that in my merchandise video, I used James as the Bachman model because, as I've mentioned before with Drake, Bachman Edward did not exist at the time production on that video had started, and it wouldn't be until shortly after the video was originally published that Bachman Edward finally did come into existence. You don't need to tell me that this is not Bachman Edward. I know it. Somebody suggested that I make an improved version of Bachman Mushi using actual Bachman Edward. So I did. I made a follow-up video that not only included a better Bachman Mushi model, but also the My First Thomas Mushi model, as I forgot to include it in my initial Mushi video. You hear me? I know I forgot it. You don't need to tell me about it, alright? Sorry about that, I just remember getting so many comments from people telling me I forgot something when I either already know, or the item they say I forgot didn't exist at the time the video came out. I even made a physical Mushi model using an old wooden railway Edward that I had from a long time ago. I should also mention that Mushi got his own personal coaches, Nigel and Bruce, the only non-engine characters I'm mentioning in this installment of the series. Nigel and Bruce were coaches who were rewarded to Mushi after he saved Mavis and Toby from a crash at the railroad crossing. Sound familiar? I also made physical models of Nigel and Bruce, using wooden railway coaches that were designed to be custom painted. What is interesting is that although Nigel and Bruce didn't get separate images in the new Engine Slideshow video, they actually do in Kuno the Tank Engine. Both of their names are rip-offs of mine, by the way. In fact, these users appear in Kuno the Tank Engine because they are rip-offs. But enough about that, let's move on. Toolie. Toolie is a green tender engine who is number 8 on the Sodor and Mainland Railway, and is Mushi's sister. Felix Cheng also made a Toolie model, but she was never featured in her own episode, sadly. I also made a custom model of Toolie as well using an old James model. But I'm not sure if I'm happy with how this model turned out, if I'm being honest. Maybe I should redo it at some point. In both the new Engine Slideshow series and Kuno the Tank Engine, Mushi and Toolie share a base image. The next two engines are Vortex number 9 and Bow Wow number 10. I don't have anything to say about either of them, but I think Felix Cheng made a Bow Wow model out of Lego bricks. Much like Toolie, although Bow Wow did have a model made of him, he was never featured in any episode. As for Jack the Red Engine, number 11, while there isn't anything I have to say about him as a character, he is another foreshadowing of what would come in the future. Jack is of the same engine basis as Sunny, a character introduced to the show about 12 or 13 years later. I even did this image of Sunny, editing him to look like Jack. That covers the Soder and Mainland Railway engines for now, so let's head to the Skarloey Railway. Sheen. Sheen is Skarloey Railway number 8, and before anyone brings up Duke, I am aware that Duke is canonically number 8 in the Railway series, but not in the TV series, so I'm going to be ignoring that. And as I have mentioned in my YouTube Nostalgic Look Back series, I am going to stick with Sheen being Skarloey Railway number 8. If you do not like that, that is too bad. If you want a better explanation for why I prefer Sheen over Duke, I already explained it. If you want a better explanation than the one I gave, I'm sorry, there isn't a better explanation. Otherwise, I would have given it. Sheen is a pink diesel and is based on Tallylin Railway's number 8, Merseyside. It is worth noting that I also did Sheen in Thomas merchandise art. It was pretty easy to do. I just took Felix Cheng's merchandise images of King Shadowtube, who appears as Sheen in Kuno the Tank Engine, edited the name boards on the side, and made these. While Fred isn't a fan character, I think I'd like to mention him since Felix Cheng's headcanon of this character has him painted in a light lavender color, as opposed to black as he likely was painted in the Railway series. So since Fred exists, Felix Cheng didn't need to make a number 9. Not sure if he acknowledged Duke as number 8 or not, or even if number 8 even made an appearance. Getting back to the actual fan characters, we have Daryl McDarrell, number 10. He is a rainbow diesel and is based on Tallylin Railway's number 10, Bryn Aegluis. Yes, that is how it is pronounced. I actually had to look it up during this recording. And then there are 2 other narrow gauge engines that do not have numbers, those being Paul and Winston. Nothing more to say about either of them. This first episode also featured 2 miniature gauge engines, those being Dougie the red diesel and Siegfried the blue engine. Now we head over to the Coldefell Railway, and this is where I bring up some interesting information regarding something we found out in early 2026 regarding the Coldefell Railway. Also, for some reason, I kept spelling fell as feel in the script. Around the start of 2026, we got confirmation that the Coldefell Railway has 4 diesels, which are based on Snowdon Mountain engines Ninian, Yeti, Harris, and George. At the time the new Engine Slideshow series came out, we didn't have this information yet, but Felix Cheng did make Coldefell engines 9 through 12 as well as 13 through 26. But as of this video's recording, we haven't gotten confirmation if engines 13 through 26 are canon. But apparently, engines 9 through 12 are canon. In Felix Cheng's new Engine Slideshow, number 9 is called Norman. I mistyped it as normal in the script. Number 10 is called Betty, number 11 is called Phyllis, and number 12 is called George. As of this video's recording, we have not gotten any confirmation about what the canon names of Coldefell engines 9 through 12 are, and I am really hoping that they don't, because if they do, and they aren't any of the names I've mentioned here, that would completely ruin this 20-year-old headcanon. So what does this mean? Well, it means that Norman, Betty, Phyllis, and George are semi-canon characters. If you're wondering what that means, a canon character is an official character in the show. Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, and Percy are all canon characters. They are all characters who appeared in the series. Something that is non-canon is something that is unofficial or non-existent in the official media. Most of the new Engine Slideshow characters are non-canon, as they are fan-made. But with Norman, Betty, Phyllis, and George, nearly 20 years later, they became semi-canon, and what that means is that while their names are not canon, the characters themselves are canon. We don't know what gender the official numbers 9 through 12 are. That pretty much means that what is non-canon are their names and genders, what is canon is their basis and numbers. And for anyone watching the Kuno the Tank Engine series and wondering about Coldefell engines 9 through 12, now that they are canon, Felix Cheng has already included Norman and George in the series. I brought in Betty and Phyllis in Generation 2, so they count as these characters. Even if the names in the new Engine Slideshow series do get retconned, which I'm praying at max level to God they do not, that wouldn't ruin things for Kuno the Tank Engine. So now that I've talked about the semi-canon Culdifel engines, let's move on to talking about the rest of the Mountain engines that are, at least as of this video's release, completely non-canon. We have Billy, number 13, Bonnie, number 14, Maisie, Nate, and Rover, numbers 15, 24, and 25. If you're wondering why we only see a number 15, I have no idea why Felix Cheng did that, but I do have a theory on why there is this huge gap between Maisie and Nate's numbers, but I'll get to that in a bit. Moving on, we also have Malfoy, number 16, Carl, number 17, Judy, number 18, Cassidy, number 19, Kate, number 20, Winston, number 21, Todd, number 22, Rover, number 23, and Hector, number 26. As for that explanation of why Maisie is number 15 while Nate is number 24 and Rover is number 25, I'm going to guess that maybe Maisie was initially the only one of her brothers to be purchased by the Culdifel controller. But sometime after Grover's arrival, Maisie convinced the controller to get Nate and Rover, so they were brought over. I'm not sure if anyone ever asked about this back in the day, but I'm wishing I had thought to ask about it, but I think this is a pretty good explanation for that nevertheless. So there you have it. I know a lot of folks would like me to cover the whole episode, but with so many characters in this first episode alone, I figured it made sense to start with the new engines that have numbers that line up with the numbers for the Northwestern Railway, as well as the Soder and Mainland engines, the narrow gauge engines, the miniature engines, and the Culdifel engines. Now, as I finished this script, I got the news that MageHost, an image hosting site that Felix Cheng had used to post most of the engines from the new Engine Slideshow and Kuno the Tank Engine videos, had recently come back online. But I did some searching and I wasn't able to find any of the old images. It seems like this website just completely rebooted and anything that was there before isn't there anymore. So it looks like a lot of those new engine images are still lost. It will be a while before we reach any episodes that are currently lost. As of this video's recording, the earliest episode that is lost is episode 3, and for a while, we'll be looking over the characters who appeared in part 1. I'll probably do some entries in this series that have multiple episodes, and some that are just split up into one episode. So I hope you enjoyed this first installment of the new Engine Slideshow lore. As for when I'll bring the next entry in this series out, I've got a couple of other videos I'd like to get done. Right now, I'll need to get the next episode of Kuno the Tank Engine Generation 2 out. Then there is the next entry in the YouTube Nostalgic Look Back series, in which I will be talking about some of the first users who had made an appearance in the original Kuno the Tank Engine series. I am not sure if the images on MageHost.com will be restored, or if they will ever be restored by the time that I get this video out, but I will leave a link to Felix Cheng's MageHost account in the description below. So if you guys want to go check out his gallery and see if those images have been restored, you can go ahead and take a look in the link below. And if they have been restored, do let me know. If they do get restored, I will update the description once they have been restored, if they ever do get restored, to give the confirmation that I'm already aware that the images have been restored. So please be sure to check the description first to see if I already know before you point out that the images have been restored if they ever do get restored. Thank you so much for watching this, and I will see you all next time.